Guns like the FN Reflex are really important to me because I live in a major metropolitan city, so I like my guns to be small. I like these micro, compact, concealed carry guns because my social life is kind of dynamic. At any given point, I could be at the bank, I could be at the mall, I could be at a store, I could be at the gym, I could be at a party, what have you. So for me, being able to hide the gun as best as possible, but having a micro compact with full-size gun capacity is really important to me. Now, 8 months ago, I did a video on the FN Reflex. So, after 8 months of use, what are my thoughts?
I swear FN is the only company that can make me prefer the FDE version of a gun over the black, and my last name is literally Black in French. The FDE Reflex kitted with black accessories is just so visually appealing. The proportions on the gun are nearly perfect. Doesn't matter if you're using the flush magazine, the pinky extension, or the 15-round magazine. The proportions on the guns always look perfect. That said, I understand it's the name of the gun, but I wish it didn't have the words Reflex on the side. I've gotten used to it, but it would make for a much cleaner appearance without it. But I get it. The name's gotta go somewhere. So, sorry to interrupt the video, but I just want to talk about the range that I'm shooting on right now. You see, it's not actually just a range. It's actually a property called Whiskey Hollow, and it's in Conroe, Texas. It has a huge barn dominium in it with 5 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms. There's a pond on the property. It's 15 acres in total, and you can hunt on the property, and there's a 300-yard range, which you should be shooting on right now. So if you're looking to do a little weekend getaway and just want to get away from it all for a little bit while having a range on the property for you to shoot, I'm going to put a link in the description section for you to check it out. All the ammo used in this video was brought to you by Noir, maker of the most innovative, most accurate, and most effective bullets and ammunition in the industry.
So how does it shoot? Really good, actually. For guns like this, what you're looking for is something that points very naturally and intuitively. So, for instance, when you go to a draw and you point up, you don't want to have to think about what the gun's doing because it's such a small gun. So the gun should feel really personal to you, and this gun does that. It's a small gun, but it doesn't feel too small, because there's such a thing as having too small of a gun because, one, it makes it harder to get to the gun, but also when you're shooting the gun, the shooting experience doesn't feel so compromised because the gun is so small. Now, I'm not gonna say it has the same recoil as a full-size gun, it doesn't. There's a poppiness to the gun that you're never really gonna get with a 9mm, but in hand, like, all it just comes together in terms of the ergonomics of the gun plus the way it handles and manages recoil. So for instance, this grip texture, I made fun of it in the initial video saying, oh, you know, it's like 18 million grip textures when really it's only 2. But I think a lot of times we tend to make too much about nothing with respect to the sides because it's the front and the back strap that actually are the most important part because that's the part of the gun you're making most contact with. So that allows me to bear down on a gun, keep that gun flat, and shoot that gun as fast as I need to while still staying on target. And so now, that's with the 15-round magazine. So if we go here, the flush magazine or with the pinky, everything more or less still stays the same, unless you just have Goliath-sized hands, right? I have medium to small hands. I call them super small, but they're really medium to super small. That doesn't make any sense. They're medium to small size, but even still, everything still stays the same. Now, yes, I noticed that I'm not using the 15-rounder because it's a little bit lacking, but the gun still just runs, and it's a very intuitive shooting gun. Now, this trigger plays a big part in that as well. This is one of probably the more unique style triggers in a micro compact size gun like this, because when you look at it, you think it is a striker fired gun. It's not. It is a single action internal hammer fired gun. So it doesn't function the same way, even though it may look the same as a striker fired gun. Now, when you start talking about hammer fired triggers or hammer fired guns, the triggers always have a different feel. And the one thing that they are is smooth. So here you have this wall, this nice take up, and it's gooey smooth. And I know this seems a weird way to describe it. We're not talking like razor edge smooth. This is like a gooey smooth. And then you hit that wall, and then the brakes, and then you have a reset up here. Now, reset mishmat, right? Because I don't really shoot to reset. I don't shoot like this and then reset and then reset. I'm shooting where I'm resetting under recoil. So I don't really even notice the reset, but the reset is a bit high. But one thing I will say, the entire trigger experience is just smooth, not silky smooth, gooey smooth. And I know gooey sounds bad, but it's not. So it comes here, you got this take up, boom, take up, boom, take up, boom. And it becomes a very intuitive trigger. So then when you put everything together, you have the ergonomics come forward, and the gun really just runs. It's a gun that runs very naturally in your hand. And when you have a gun that's this size, that's incredibly important. I love shooting this thing. And the more I shoot it, the more I enjoy it. And honestly, the more I shoot it, the more I forget that it's so small. Another thing, accuracy. So when I think accuracy, this to me is about a 15 yards and in kind of gun. That's what this is for me. Now, can you stretch it out and take it back? Yeah, you can. But when you start talking about pinpoint accuracy, for instance, when I'm running this plate, like I said, I don't feel like I'm under gun from a shooting experience standpoint. It may be a smaller gun, but we're still talking about 15 rounds here. 15 round magazines, my Glock 19 is 15 rounds. So for me, I've really grown to love the way this thing shoots, and to such an extent, I think the only gun that really naturally sits in my hand and may shoot better a little bit, more intuitively speaking, like just intuitive shooting. The closest thing I would have to say would be the 6-hour P365. But they're neck and neck. And then the Springfield Hellcat is like right underneath them, right, as far as intuitive shooting. I like Springfield Hellcat for other reasons, but by and large, from a shooting experience, this to me is one of the better shooting experience I've had in these micro compact size guns.
So there are two versions of the FN Reflex, the Reflex and the Reflex MRD. The only difference is that the MRD has an optic cut on the slide for you to use as a micro red dot. If you're gonna get the Reflex, just get the MRD version. If you don't like red dots on guns, just get the MRD version. There's no reason to unnecessarily limit yourself. Second only to the Springfield Hellcat Pro, the FN Reflex has the best size to capacity ratio in the micro compact gun space. 11 rounds with a flush magazine, a width of 1 inch, a height of 4.27 inches, and an overall length of 6.2 inches. To this day, it's still insane to me how they're able to fit so many rounds in such a small gun, but I'll take it. My favorite feature on the gun has become the sights. They're almost the perfect sight setup for a micro compact self-defense carry gun. It's your traditional 3-dot setup with the front sight being a night sight surrounded by orange fluorescent paint, which forces you to focus on the front sight as the fundamentals of shooting dictate. The slide is noticeably easier to rack compared to other guns in its class. I can easily rack the slide by simply pinching the back end of the gun and giving it a moderate pull. So for those out there who have a hard time racking slides on guns, you definitely won't have that problem here. And finding lights for micro compact guns can be a bit of a pain, but one advantage of the Reflex being a little longer than other guns in this category is that it opens up the number of lights that can fit on the gun, which admittedly isn't saying all that much as there aren't that many micro lights on the market in the first place. Everything else is what you expect to get with a gun in this class.
So who's the FN Reflex for? Well, easily said is the most unique aspect of the gun is the fact it's an internal hammer-fired action firearm. So for anybody who's used to shooting hammer-fired guns, of course, if they want to go down to something micro-compact, this is definitely going to be the route that you want to go, especially if you love the character and the type of nature that hammer-fired triggers tend to have. I'm not gonna lie to you, it kind of took me a little bit to get used to it because I was so used to kind of the clinical nature of striker-fired triggers. Whereas this one kind of has a rolling feel versus striker-fired, which tends to have a kind of direct linear path. They're both a direct linear path, but the way it feels on your finger is totally different. And some people may not like it, and other people will love it. Me personally, it did take me a second to get used to it. And when I say a second, maybe like 5 minutes of shooting, and until I started understanding how the trigger actually functioned. But once you hit that point where you become familiar with that trigger, the gun is a damn shooter, man. It's a damn shooter, and it's one of those guns that manages to be exceedingly small, but have a very big presence in hand. So, which I think is a big deal, and I think it's important because, again, I think gun confidence is a big thing when it comes to self-defense. If you don't feel like you're confident with the gun that you have in your hand because it may feel too small, then that's not a good thing. And I think this gun really strikes the balance of being, keep in mind, we're talking marginal differences here, because between the P365, between the Springfield Hellcat, I mean, they're very, very, very close. This has a slightly longer barrel than the others, but by and large, this thing is, I'm really, really considering making it my go-to really micro compact size gun, largely because of the way that it shoots and the way that it points so naturally while still giving me extra capacity. I'm really, really considering making this the go-to micro subcompact. That sounds redundant. Micro compact. That's what we call it. They used to call them mouse guns, but the micro compact aspect of it to me. And oddly enough, I think I prefer it without the red dot. But like I said, if you're gonna get it, just get the MRD version with the red dot option, because you may change your mind. And largely the reason I think I prefer it without it is because I don't really like the red dots that are available for this size and footprint. So me personally, I would probably run the gun slick just like this. So after 8 months, I gotta say the gun has done nothing but improve its reputation with me as far as reliability, as far as ergonomics, as far as looks. I do think the gun is just a damn handsome gun, except for, you know, like I said, the reflex. Gotta get rid of it. I get it, but But there you have it, the FN Reflex. I keep wanting to say the FN Flex. That's what they should have called it, Flex, because we're gonna flex on you on how many.
No.
Why do you do that?
No.
Every time I start to kind of get in my bag of creativity, you just like to stomp on it and just shit on my ideas. What kind of a person are you? And then you do that. That's like I said, I need a damn HR department.
Guns aren't political. That's why I need your help getting this message to spread on YouTube by clicking the thumbs up button, leaving a comment to let me know what you think of the video, then subscribing to the channel. But most importantly, click that bell symbol. For products featured in this video, click the links in the description.